Hi guys, thanks for joining us for Reverse Book Club. Sophie is going to lead it today. Thank you, Sophie. We are so excited to hear what you have for us. She is presenting Rich Dad, Poor Dad for everyone. Sophie, take it away.
All right, thanks, Sierra, and thank you everybody for joining us. Today I am hosting the Reverse Book Club for Mike, and I thought because of some of the other training sessions that you guys have had or we have had as a market center, that this book would be a great one to kind of go over. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read it in my 20s, and it was a game changer for me. So I wanted to share it with you, but I am going to do something a little bit different. I'm also taking bold right now. And so I thought that some of the bold laws work really well with the lessons that Rich Dad teaches in the book. And so I'm going to kind of add or include some of the bold laws throughout the discussion of the book. So here we go. If I can get my computer to work. Hold on. I can't see my whole screen. There we go. Let me go back. So first bold law is how you participate in here is how you participate everywhere. So I will ask you guys to participate, give me some of your thoughts, and also at the end, your ahas. And yeah, at the end, I'll ask all of you to kind of share what you took away from this book. But right now, if you don't mind, writing down your personal biggest asset. And then we're going to share, since we're such a small group, I think we can all share what our current personal biggest assets might be. So go ahead and unmute yourselves and just kind of shout it out, or I can call on you, whichever you prefer. Ron, what's your personal biggest asset?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Perfect. My biggest asset is a duplex I recently bought in Euclid.
Nice. Let me see. I have a hard time seeing everyone. I think it's what I'm doing. Perfect. Art, what is yours? I think you have to unmute.
Well, my asset, according to the book, will be my retirement account. So, but the accountant will say my asset is my house. So it's probably, according to the book, it will be my retirement account.
Right. I know a lot of us would say our house, right? That's oftentimes what we say to our clients as well. Ariel, what's your biggest asset at the moment?
Thank you for pronouncing my name right, because people never do. But I would say my house, my personal property.
Okay. Scott?
Probably my ownership in our franchise, our Keller Williams franchise.
There you go. Yes. And then mine, I have investment properties, which would be my biggest assets. So thanks for sharing. Let's get into the book. The premise of the book, I just got totally off site. So let's look at the bold law. The purpose of a business is to fund a perfect life, which is sort of what Robert talks about. Like, how do you get to the life that you want to live in a way that you can enjoy your life? And he focuses on wealth and not income. So the difference that he makes is that income is how much money you make at your job, whatever you're working, your 9 to 5. And wealth is how long you can continue to live in a manner that you want to live without working. So for example, if you have savings, you stop working, you start spending your savings. At some point, you're going to run out of savings and you're going to have to go back to work. So the idea of wealth is that you accumulate assets that create income so that you can continue to live the life that you want to live for as long as you want, without ever basically eating up all of your capital, all of your savings. So Robert has two dads, his poor dad and his rich dad. His poor dad is his biological father. He is a government employee, highly educated from Stanford University, and his rich dad was his best friend's father. He was an entrepreneur. He had multiple businesses, but he was not highly educated. In fact, when he was in 8th grade, he had to stop going to school and start working. So you get what you deserve in your imagination. So whatever our belief system is, if we believe that we can achieve big things, we are more likely to achieve big things. If we believe that we are going to have a small life, we are probably going to have a small life. And so when you look at the beliefs that both poor dad and rich dad had, you kind of see this difference. Poor dad, when Robert would listen to his biological father, he would, say things like, money is the root of all evil. I'll never be rich. I'm not interested in money. Money doesn't matter. But when he would listen to his best friend's father, whom he called his rich dad, he would say things like, the lack of money is the root of all evil. And even when he wasn't super wealthy, he would say things like, I'm rich and rich people don't do this. He would say money is power. He would say things like, I don't work for money. I find ways for money to work for me. And Robert, even as a young boy, when he was 9 years old, started noticing the difference in how his two dads thought of money. So bold law is change your thinking, change your world. If you can, shift your mindset, oftentimes your reality shifts with it. So he also paid attention to his dad's mindsets. His poor dad would say things like, I can't afford this, or we can't afford this. He would, if he had problems, he would be like, well, we need to have more money to solve these problems. He really liked security. He thought it was good. His goal was to work for a good company or the government because they will take care of you. When he listened or paid attention to his rich dad's mindset, he would notice that his rich dad never said, I can't afford it. He would always ask himself, how can I afford this? I want to do this. I don't have the money right now. How can I afford it? And his rich dad would always tell him that the word can't was a mental laziness, because you didn't feel like trying to solve the problem. You didn't feel like, instead of saying, I can't afford it, why don't I find ways that I can afford it? He also didn't believe that money would solve problems. He says, you spend money. Your intelligence will solve your problems. Your intelligence is what's going to produce money. And he really instilled in Robert and Robert's best friend the idea of self-reliance. If you want something, it's up to you to do it. He also told them that being broke was a temporary state of mind, and being poor, a temporary state of being, and being poor is a mindset. So you can be a wealthy person who, for some reason, had, just a turn of events where you lost some money, but you can still be a wealthy person because you know that being broke in that moment is just temporary. You know that you're resourceful enough that you will solve the problem and get yourself back to where you want to be. So when I was reading the book, I really noticed that the two mindsets really came down to the idea of self-reliance versus dependence. Every single time Robert's biological father would advise him and promote the idea of job security, he was really, telling him, you need to be dependent on others. You need to be dependent on a good company. You need to be dependent on the government, which is definitely not what his rich dad would tell him. So the bold law that I liked for this one was fear or faith, you choose. And the idea is, you know, to be self-reliant, you have to believe in yourself. You have to bet on yourself. And to settle for job security and the idea that an employer or a government will take care of you is really making a decision out of fear. The fear is, what if I don't succeed? And I can tell you that every single entrepreneur has failed at least once. You know, it's not the idea that I will fail. It's the idea that I won't stop when I fail. I'll continue until I succeed. And that's the idea of the fear and faith. So what is the advice that, you know, these two dads would give Robert? Obviously, his biological father told him, stay in school, study hard, get a degree, get a good job, work for money, have that job security, your pension, work up the corporate ladder. Whereas his rich dad told the boys, educate yourself so that you can grow, study to be rich, be flexible and adaptable, understand how money works, make decisions based on reason, and own the ladder. I love this one. When I read this book, I was like, absolutely. I want to own the ladder. I want to own multiple ladders. So bold law, your business grows to the extent that you do. When you're in a job, you know, you have your job security. Yes, you're going to grow, you're going to learn, you're going to get experience, and that's how you work up the corporate ladder. But what the rich dad was telling the boys is that, you know, put yourselves in situations where you will learn about all sorts of different things, not just the job that you're doing. Learn from multiple people, learn from people who are smarter than you are, learn from people who have failed, learn from people who have succeeded. You know, just put yourself out there and continue to grow. Don't ever assume that you've reached that level. You know, I think sometimes when we have degrees, we're just like, okay, now I've got my bachelor's, now I've got my master's, now I have this. I've sort of gotten to the pinnacle of what I can learn in this field. And Rich Dad was saying, you never stop learning. So those are basically, you know, the mindsets, the advice, the belief system of his two dads. The rest of the book, Robert really talks about the lessons just from Rich Dad. And there were 6 of them, and they're listed right here. The rich don't work for money, be financially literate, mind your own business, understand taxes and the power of corporations. The rich invent money and work to learn, don't work to earn. So the first lesson was the rich don't work for money. And the bold law that I thought applied to this was keep your emotions between the lines. Does anybody want to kind of share what this would mean to them? Because when I first read this bold law, I was like, you know, what does that mean to you? Anybody who's been to bold or even just kind of reading it now?
Well, I noticed the more I do real estate and invest in, like I said, retirement in stocks or mutual funds, I know the more I can take my emotions out of the equation, the better I can do. You know, like a guy, someone told my brother who was a realtor, and he mentioned to me, you know, as a realtor, you can take your emotions out of the transaction and relay the information to your client and help them make a wiser, a logical decision, the better off you are. You know, just, I mean, you don't want to be emotional just to get, because your emotions can lie to you. You know,
right? And which emotions, like, kind of, you know, get involved when we talk about money and jobs and investing? What emotions kind of come to the surface?
Fear.
Definitely fear. There's desire, right? Like what we want is a big one. We don't want to lose anything, but we also want things. And we have this pull between the two. Like, you know, I want these things, but I don't want to be broke. I don't want to lose money. I don't want to struggle. But we also want, right? So in this, Robert was talking about how our two main emotions when it comes to money are fear and desire. And he says that people who are poor, and again, you know, being poor and being broke is different. He says that they are led by their desire, and their desire makes them spend money. And then their fear of being broke keeps them in a job so that they can earn more money and buy the things that they want to spend. What he says to do instead was to use your desire and just say, okay, this is what I want, but not buy it. What you do is, I want a new car. So instead of going out to buy the new car and then being like, wow, now I have to stay in my job because I have this new car payment and I need to make money so I can pay for this car. He says, you want the car, find income for it. Once you found the income that's going to pay for the car, that's to generate the money, you buy the car. So it's sort of like this idea of delayed gratification. Lesson 2 was to be financially literate. Success is simple, not easy. This is so true. It is not easy, but it is simple. And in this book, this is like the one thing that I took away. It's the one thing when I was in my 20s that shifted my entire mindset and put me on the path that I am on today. You know, I have, I don't know, 14 doors in Cleveland. For years, all I did was support myself with my investment properties. And it was because of this discussion about being financially literate. And he said, the one thing you need to know is the difference between an asset and a liability. And when I got this, I made different choices in my life that have definitely helped me, you know, for the last 22 years ago, I bought my first property. So what is an asset? And we discussed this, you know, and Art did mention the difference between what we consider our asset, our biggest asset is our house, and what the book would say an asset is. And this is what Robert says. An asset puts money in your wallet. That's it. That's an asset. If it doesn't put money in your wallet, it is not an asset. A liability takes money out of your wallet and puts it in somebody else's wallet. So really what he was saying in the book is that our home is our biggest liability. When you look at what you spend on your home every single month between your mortgage payment or your rent, your property taxes, if you have them, your insurance for your home, your utilities, if you have, you know, somebody doing your yard, whatever you spend every single month on your home is likely the biggest expense you have every single month. So your home is not your biggest asset. Your home is your biggest liability. And so when I was in a position to buy my first house, I ended up buying a duplex. I did sort of like what Ryan just talked about, you know, bought a duplex and I lived in part of it. And I had my tenants, you know, pay me rent. Therefore, my home was no longer my liability. when you guys hear this, what do you think? That your home is not your biggest asset. How does that, make you feel even?
It makes me want to sell my house like today.
And why? And I'm sorry, I can't see you because of, I can't figure out my computer, but
It's okay.
are you?
Yeah, just because it makes me want to sell it because I'm not making any money off of it. And I could be.
So what would you do if you sold it?
I would probably either do like what you were mentioning, like buy a duplex and live in one half, or I would probably buy some single family home investment properties and maybe stay with family until I was able to afford to buy another personal property to live in.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because we always say, oh, we help our clients with the biggest purchase of their life, which is their biggest purchase. But then we also tell them this is your biggest asset. And yes, I mean, your home has equity in it. So the day that you sell it, it is an asset, right? Every single year, it's growing in value. Every single year, you're paying down the loan that you have. Therefore, you're, increasing the equity that you have. But when you look at a monthly cash flow, it is your biggest liability. And the idea, I'm going to go back to the previous page here, is that obviously, you can have assets like an investment property, or you can have stocks that pay dividends that put money in your wallet every month. But we also have a job, right? Like I work in real estate. So I also have my commissions that come in here and, put money in my wallet as well. And so his advice is to use as much of the money that's in your wallet to spend, to pay for assets here, and as little as possible to go towards the liabilities, with the idea that the more money you put in here from your job into your wallet, and the more money the assets put in your wallet, and you return that back into the asset column, you get this circle here that just feeds itself. And the more money you have in your wallet that you put into the asset column, the more assets you will have to generate more rents. So, since we're realtors, let's talk about real estate. You buy your first duplex. And so let's say you don't make a profit off of it, but you remove all the liabilities. Your tenant pays for all of that. So you have all the income that you make from your commissions going back into your wallet. Therefore, you can save up money very quickly. And pretty soon you can buy a second investment property. And that puts money back into your wallet. And your third investment property, and then a fourth and a fifth. And try to keep these as low as possible. That's sort of what he was recommending. So when we look at these, we have student loans, we have taxes, we have credit cards, we have investment properties, kids. And nobody wants to think of their kids as a liability, but from a financial standpoint, I promise you they are. Your car, your home, your stocks. Really think about what is a liability, what is truly an asset. And if the only thing that is putting money in your wallet is you working, then what happens the day you don't want to work anymore? What happens the day that you retire? What is going to be putting money in your wallet at that time? What is going to be paying for all of your liabilities at that time? So to grow wealthy, use the income you generate by working, and what he says, to only buy assets. But obviously that's not going to happen. We all have bills. We all have to eat. So, the idea is to take as much of the income as you have to buy assets that will generate more money. So on page 81, he was talking about the difference between rich, poor, and the middle class. He says the rich buy assets, and they understand that assets are things that put money back in their wallet. The poor only have expenses, and the middle class buys liabilities they think are assets. A liability that we think are assets would be our home, would be a boat, would be a vacation home that we do not rent out on Airbnb, for example, putting in that pool. Those are all, like, we think of assets, but they're truly liabilities. So anybody else want to share about the assets and liabilities? Have any thoughts, feelings about that?
I think all our lives, all we've ever heard is the American dream is to buy a home, buy a home. And I think that dream was sold without all the information. But you're right, it really is a liability in and of itself unless you sell it. So interesting to think about it that way.
It is. It definitely is a mind shift, isn't it? So the lesson 3 is mind your own business. So you need to understand the difference between your profession and your business. That's what he means by that. Bold law, do what you have always done. You will get what you have always gotten. If you want your life to change, then you have to change your actions. Before you can change your actions, you need to change your mindset. So your profession is what you do to earn money. My profession is I'm a realtor. I am growing my business, but I'm also growing somebody else's business, right? If I were an accountant in a big firm, I would be making my money as, for my job, but I would be making whoever owns that firm way more money than I'm making myself, because they own the business. A business is what you own that generates money, and it does not require your presence. And I've added mostly because a lot of people think that passive income means that you don't have to tend to it. It's not true. Real estate is not passive. Investment properties are not passive. I think Ryan can attest to that. It definitely takes your attention, not always, not 9 to 5, but you do need to pay attention. But your business will make you rich. Your profession is how you support yourself, but if you don't have a business, you will never truly be wealthy. And I think that's something that, is talked about a lot at the Market Center. Almost every single class is about helping us as agents grow a business within Keller Williams Greater Metropolitan. So think about that. It's not just, can I buy investment properties, but how can I grow my business? The downline, that's another way that you can grow your business. You just keep growing it. You're going to make income off of that without having to work for it. You just have to find them initially. So how do you get from having a profession to having a business? Obviously, keep your job. Start buying real assets, not liabilities or personal effects. Keep your expenses as low as possible. When I bought my first duplex in Cleveland Heights, it had a finished 3rd floor. So I actually lived on that 3rd floor. I didn't have a full kitchen. And I rented the 1st and 2nd floors. And I did that for a few years before I bought my 2nd investment property. First one is reduce your liabilities. If you have things that cost money that are not necessary, and they can be as small as the gym membership that you're not going to, whatever is a repeating charge on your credit cards, that whatever memberships you don't even know that you have, get rid of them. And then diligently build a base of solid assets. And it takes time. The first one usually takes, it's the hardest because you're buying it just with your income. But once you've done the first one, you're buying the 2nd one with your income plus the income of the first asset. And when you're buying the 3rd one, you're buying it with your income plus income of the 1st and 2nd asset. And the further down the road you go, the easier it is to buy those assets. So the idea of delayed gratification is important. The rich buy luxuries last, while others usually buy them first. And that is, you know, are we being driven by our desires in a way that we want to buy it now and then we'll just work to pay for it? Or are we driven by our desires and using the desire to have a vacation home or to retire at a certain age or to be able to send your kids to college without having them you know, take on any debt? Are we using that desire to get creative and to find assets that will help us fund those things? Lesson 4, understanding taxes and the power of corporations. Very important. This is life by design, not by default. Again, you have to be purposeful in what you do. You can't just accidentally fall into a fantastic life and a lot of assets and a lot of wealth. You're going to have to plan for it. And, you know, so I thought this bold law was the best one for this. So my number one advice, speak to an accountant and or an attorney. I'm neither. So I'm kind of gonna gloss through this, but this section is talking about pre-tax dollars, our expenses. And, you know, also understanding income versus bonuses. As agents, if we have an LLC, there's a different way that we can pay ourselves a salary and pay ourselves bonuses, and we can save on taxes just by setting up an LLC. I cannot explain it to you. Like I said, I am not an accountant. I am not an attorney. But I do know that if you have an LLC that's taxed as an S Corp, you have tax benefits. Also understanding if you have investment properties, the value of doing 1031 exchanges when you're selling and buying. Like understanding the basics of the tax code so that you can minimize the taxes that you pay. And, you know, there's a saying out there, you don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. You know, sometimes we're like, well, I don't want to pay an accountant those few $100 or an attorney, you know, $500 for this because, you know, it's $500. It's quite a bit of money. But when we look at the savings that we will have over our lifetime by having spent that $500, maybe it's we're saving, you know, $300 a year for the rest of our life because we spent that $500. What kind of return is that? So my recommendation is talk to an attorney, talk to an accountant, see how you can minimize the taxes that you have to pay based on your situation. So people who own corporations, and it doesn't have to be a big building like IBM, just you can be a one-person corporation. You earn, you spend, and then you pay taxes. When you work for corporations, you earn, you pay taxes, and then you spend. So, and obviously we're 1099. So we are responsible for all of our Social Security payments, all of that. If you have a corporation, again, you can minimize how much of that you have to pay out. So big advice, talk to someone. Lesson number 5, the rich invent money. Don't listen to your limiting mindset. Like we all have this. Everybody has a limiting mindset. Some of us got it from, you know, that's how we grew up. We were, you know, just like Robert, we had parents who said, you want security, this is what you do, don't rock the boat, don't take risks. And some of us, you know, maybe we did not do as well in school, and whatever the limiting mindset is, we don't think that we deserve something. Don't listen to it. Like every single one of us, regardless of our background, our education, we are all capable of, you know, creating and building the life that we want, whatever that means for us. We are capable of doing that. And I love this because, oops, this one, it totally falls into the bold. And this is a direct quote from the book. Often in the real world, it is not the smart that get ahead, but the bold. The one thing that holds us all back is some degree of self-doubt. It is not so much the lack of technical information that holds us back, but more the lack of self-confidence. We talk ourselves out of things. Like, how many people would love to go after $1 million listings? And how many of us dare to do it? Because we have imposter syndrome. Who am I to sell $1 million house? I've never even set foot in $1 million house. Like, I don't know anybody who has $1 million house. And so we don't go after that because we don't think we're qualified, worthy. Who cares? You know, can we sell a house? Yes. Can we market a house? Yes. Are we good at our job? Yes. What's the difference between a $200,000 house or a $2 million house? And whatever we apply the same thing, the same skills. You know, do we have to do like different marketing? Possibly. Are we going to have to take more photos? Are we going to have to maybe do like a video? Can we figure out how to do that? Of course we can. How many of us are doing it? So I have a question. If anybody wants to share, I would love it. I know it takes courage sometimes to share things, and especially where we have certain lack of confidence. But anybody want to share some of their limiting beliefs that are holding them back, either as real estate agents or investors, or, you know, an experience you had in the past that you overcame? So it could be a current hurdle or one that you have managed to overcome. So I'll share one. You know, I got into real estate as an agent because I was an investor. And so I went after the investors because I knew that. I knew that market super, super well. And I'm good at it. And then I got a lead for a house in Solon that was in the 600,000, which I had not done. A $600,000 listing. I had never done a 500, a 400, a 300. Maybe I had done like something close to 3 as a multi-unit in Cleveland Heights. That was it. Definitely different, completely different property, and obviously also different seller. And I was very nervous going into this listing. You know, I don't think I had the confidence. I felt like, who am I to come in here? I've never done this before. And I was really like doubting myself, and I didn't get the listing. I did not get the listing, but I was gracious about it. I sent her an email. I wanted to know, I actually kind of fessed up to the fact that this was my first time going on a listing appointment for a house of this caliber. You know, I understand that you went with somebody else, and I totally respect that, but I really appreciate if you would take a few minutes and let me know like where I missed, like what could I have done better? And she didn't respond to me. But 3 months later, she called me back and said, hey, I did not like the agent I went with. I'd really like to work with you. I know. And she kind of went back to my email where I was honest with her about like my reservations and my nervousness. I'd going to her listing appointment, but my eagerness to learn and to do a good job. And we met for like a long time, and I got her listing, and I think I did a really, really, really kick-ass job with the marketing of it. And, you know, there was no reason, zero reason. I'm still the same person. the second time I spoke to her than I was the first time I spoke to her. There was no reason for me to doubt myself, but I did. And I still have that sometimes. I still, if I were to go into a $1.2 million listing, would I feel that same kind of apprehension? I probably will. I think we all have that. I think that's just our nature. Anybody else want to share?
I can share, Sophie. Bernadette here. I think I was intimidated by trying to convince a for sale by homeowner to pay my fee.
Mm-hmm.
And I danced around it for like 2 or 3 days, almost losing the house. But eventually I just, got up the confidence. It was really script practice that made me feel confident, and that was with the help of other agents, because that was my very, very first deal. But yeah, I just felt like, why would he pay my fee when somebody else may just come up and, buy the house without him having to pay a fee? So that was one of the things for me. Took a couple of days to change my mindset about it.
How did you change your mindset?
I switched it to what I was doing for him. Because if I recall, I think it had been sitting for like 40, 50 days. And I said, we can end it now. I mean, you're losing money the longer, it sits. And so I made it about what I was bringing to him and not what I was taking. I felt like I was taking from him. And he saw the value in me helping him take a property that was just sitting.
It's true. All we need is to shift our mindset. We do have a lot of hurdles sometimes in our business as real estate agents. I'm going to share one more about my business as an investor. I shared that my first house that I bought was a duplex. I lived in it, then I bought another one, but there are always like okay houses. They were higher price points, not anything fantastic, but not anything that was scary either. And in 2013, I was really pondering buying a house from a bank. It had been vacant for 5 years, and it was a total gut job. Like it was a huge undertaking. And I was nervous. I'd never done it. I had never, ever done anything like this. We needed to redo every single mechanical system. I had to redesign the kitchen. And, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to, repaint this unit. I'm going to change the vanity in the bathroom. It was just like a major full-on, full house remodel. And I remember just being very nervous. And I was walking into Home Depot. I hadn't made up my mind yet. And I was there early in the morning when all the contractors were walking through. And I remember looking at this one guy, and he's talking loudly about, what they're doing. And obviously they were doing a total remodel. And I told myself, I'm like, if that guy can do it, I can too. He learned it, I can learn it. And I went into it with that mindset. And I'm so glad that I had that moment, because I don't know that I would have had the courage to take on such a big project. And that was my mindset. It has been my mindset ever since when I've invested. I don't go in blindly, but I also tell myself, if all these other people have been able to figure it out, and that's what they had to do. They weren't just like born with this knowledge. Like Ryan Young wasn't just born with, I'm getting $5 million listings. He had to work for it. He had to learn along the way. And if he can learn that, and if he can build a team that sells 150 million plus a year, I can too. You can too. All of us can do it. And it's just, we just have to put in the work. We have to believe ourselves. We have to continue to push ourselves to learn. We have to recognize that it's not going to be an easy path, that we're going to stumble and make some mistakes, but that we're going to persist until we succeed, whatever that takes. And, that's what success is. And this is what this often in the real world, it is not the smart that get ahead, but the bold. And I would say the bold and the persistent. One of my favorite quotes is, a winner is a loser who tried one more time. So for the bold, a difficulty equals an opportunity if you dare. Robert Kiyosaki says, all you need to do well financially is to understand simple math and have common sense. He doesn't believe in gambling, but he does believe in taking risks that he understands, knowing that the outcome of that situation is dependent on him, his willingness to work hard, and his willingness to learn. He always asks himself when there's a difficulty, how can I turn this into an opportunity? And it doesn't have to be a personal difficulty. The financial crisis that we had 12 years ago was, it was a difficulty for a lot of people, but it presented a huge opportunity for those who dared. When nobody wanted to buy a house, that was a perfect time to buy a house. He also says that if the opportunity is too complex and he doesn't understand it, he doesn't do it. I know that there is huge money to be made in cryptocurrency and the metaverse, whatever that is. I'm not touching it. I don't even know what the metaverse is. I'm not investing in it. I can't understand it. His other mindset that he says is, you have to understand that sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. If you win all the time, you're not pushing yourself, you're not learning. And you cannot be discouraged by the stumbles, and sometimes they're more than stumbles. Sometimes we fall down and it's okay. You just pick yourself up, what happened? What did I learn from this? What will I not do next time? I have a rule. I've made a lot of mistakes in investing. My rule is I'm not allowed to make the same mistake twice. But the joke is I always find another mistake to make. So I guess I'm still learning. Winners are not afraid of losing. They are afraid of not growing. So you have to let go of your fear of failure. Nobody likes to fail, right? Nobody likes to say, hey, I tried to do this, it didn't work out. I tried to go for that $1 million listing, I didn't get it, but eventually you will. It might not be the first one, it might not be the second one, but keep at it. Keep improving your game. Same thing with investing, same thing with building wealth. Keep at it. Lesson number 6, work to learn, don't work for money. So the bold law for this one is what you focus on expands. And this is very true. For financial intelligence, he says you need to understand a little bit of all of these. You need to understand a bit of accounting, a bit of investing, a bit of marketing, and a little bit of law. He says to know a little about a lot, pick up jargon or terms of art. That's sort of like what you use. I mean, we have it in our industry. People don't know what it is, but pick it up, understand some accounting terms, like what a 1031 exchange is. Get a sense of what is important and what isn't, and understand and implement systems in your business. He says that the most important specialized skill, and he's not a big on specialized skills, but except for sales and marketing, you need to know how to sell, and we need to know how to market, especially in our business. His last advice was surround yourself by people who are smarter than you. You are the sum of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. I added that. And the reason for that is if you don't surround yourself by people who are smarter than you, you will not have as many opportunities to grow and learn. And success breeds success. When you surround yourself by people who are achieving and who are successful, that motivates you. So what are the obstacles we need to overcome? You know, fear of losing money. Nobody wants to lose money, but I can tell you that every single entrepreneur out there has some story of, you know, a time when they lost a lot of money and it sucked. But it's part of the process. You know, don't stop there. Just tell yourself, okay, I lost $5,000. I just paid $5,000 for this lesson. I am better. I am smarter. I will not make that same mistake again. That was part of your education. Overcome cynicism. You know, don't worry about the skies falling. Everybody's always thinking the sky's falling. You know, will the stock market collapse? Will the housing market collapse? If you look at the stock market or, you know, the housing market and you look at it on a small scale, you will usually see a lot of up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, right? And some of them are big ups and some of them are big downs. But if you look at the last 100 years for the stock market, it is a straight line up. Same thing for investment properties. So let's say you buy investment properties and we go back to a point like 2009 where the property values just tanked, absolutely tanked. Who cares? Unless you're selling at that moment, it doesn't matter. They will go back up. Things always go back up. Don't use busyness as a way to avoid unappealing tasks. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to build wealth, there are going to be some tasks that you don't want to do, like making your calls. That's in our business and our work, but we do have unappealing tasks. And oftentimes a way to kind of avoid that and not admit to ourselves that we're avoiding that is that we start getting really busy with different things. Recognize that. Be like, okay, I have this task to do. I'm avoiding it by being busy somewhere else. Just do the task. Be done with it. Have it in your rear view mirror and move on. One of the things that I love this, it's, you know, when it comes to money, pay yourself first. And I don't know where this first quote comes from, but we hear it all the time at the Market Center. You don't decide your future, you decide your habits, and your habits decide your future. So if you pay yourself first, that means you save money for investments. That habit will decide your future. You saying, I want to be wealthy, isn't going to do anything unless you start acting in a way that allows you to build wealth. So make sure that your habits are aligned with your goals. And then arrogance, avoid arrogance. It's ego plus ignorance. Self-confidence is different, but arrogance does not do that. So last words, have a big why. If you have a big why, you can get through all of the unpleasant things, you know, the tedious things, keep your eye on the prize kind of thing. Each day, choose to improve yourself, your mind, and your habits. It doesn't have to be a lot, but a little bit each day. Choose your friends carefully. Surround yourself by people who are also successful and want to be successful, and who have a mindset to build assets that will create wealth. You become what you study. Are you spending your time watching The Real Housewives? Or are you using your time to understand more about investments, about how money works, about how to create an LLC, how to market better, how to start, you know, killing it in videos, Facebook, Instagram? You know, what are you spending your time on? Pay yourself first. There's a story of Rockefeller when he and his wife were poor, and he told his wife, we're going to save half of the money that I bring in. And he wasn't bringing in a lot. And his wife was just like, are you crazy? We can't afford to save half of what you make. And supposedly he said, we can't afford not to. because he knew that if they didn't do that, they would always be poor. Assets pay for luxuries. Do not buy your luxuries first. Buy the assets first, and then have the assets pay for the luxuries. Do not pay luxuries with your income. So I'd like each of you to kind of think about your main takeaways. I know this is kind of a quick run through of the book, but he has really good tidbits. Anything that you guys want to share?
I like what you said about like if you want something, to find the income for it first. It kind of reminded me about what Eric was talking about in the investment training, you know, about instead of buying something, buy like an income generating asset to pay for it. And once the asset is paid off, you'll still have the asset. And then you also have, you know, that thing that you wanted too. Not just like, you know, just spending your money on stuff that you want.
Right. And it's true, you know, that's absolutely the idea is, you know, I have $100, I can pay for this bag that I want. And then next time I want something, I need to, you know, save up my $100, or I can take my $100, buy an asset, and every single time that asset pays me, I can buy something that I want. What you find, and what most investors find, which is not what you think in the beginning, is that you will delay your gratification, right? You will say, okay, I want these things, but I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to save my money. I'm going to buy that asset. And then with the income generated by that asset, I'm going to go buy those things that I wanted. And then you get there and you realize, oh no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to use that income to buy other assets. And then the thing that you want is no longer the purse. The thing that you want is no longer that fancy car. What happens is the thing that you want is more assets. And that's kind of a fun game.
Sounds like an addiction to getting more assets.
It is in a way, you know, and if it is, but it becomes the thing that you want. I found that to be my my biggest shift, was all of a sudden when I end up having like a nice amount of assets, I could care less which car I drive. Like it became a lot less important when I began to build wealth to have a nice car.
Yeah.
That car.
One of the things that I guess my biggest takeaway was one of the first things you said, and that's that assets are things that make you money, not just things that you have. Whether it's a house or you know, a piece of jewelry, you know, the definition that we've lived by, or I've lived by, for assets is very different than that. And so I think that's an interesting thing, because there's even rental properties out there that probably by that standard aren't really assets. They're
right.
They're money pits or some other category. I think I might have one. Ryan DeLuca hopefully can buy it from me.
Yeah, it's true though. You know, not everything that we invest in, hoping that it will be an asset, turns out to be an asset, you know, and those are not fun. You know, I have bought properties that did not make me money. I have bought properties that were, you know, a bad purchase, and I had to get out and, you know, lick my wounds a little bit and, you know, learn from that lesson of like, well, you know, where did I go wrong with this one? Why did it not make me money? But yeah, not all investment opportunities will end up being assets. I have a client of mine who sold his house to buy Bitcoin. which just blows my mind. But that's what he did. He sold his house, he bought a bunch of Bitcoin. I don't know if he made money or not, but I thought about this. I'm like, what if he bought at the top and it went down to half? The idea was to invest his money and make money, but he may not have made, he may have lost a lot of money.
If you did that in the last 90 days, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So I have not asked him because I figured there's one great answer and one really, really bad one. So anybody else has a takeaway?
Yeah, I have a quick takeaway. In the beginning, when you were discussing the belief systems between the rich dad and the poor dad, I think we can all relate to that because we each have a rich dad, poor dad character in our lives. Like, for example, for focusing on the assets, like making that move is pretty challenging and not knowing what to do and how to start. And I had a lot of the poor dads in my life, and some of them were my family saying, "You're crazy, what are you doing? Don't do it, don't do this." And the fact of the matter is they haven't done any of that themselves. And I'm like, why am I listening to them? And that's when I started finding mentors, people who have done it. So just, questioning who I'm listening to and just educating yourself.
I have a question for you because I think you're absolutely spot on, right? We all have people in our lives who will promote us doubting ourselves, and then we have others who can be mentors. When did you start investing?
Well, it's funny, and that's what attracted me to this book that you're doing today, because this book helped shift my mindset with that. And I found somebody who was actually Eric before I was even licensed, who was doing this, and I actually mentored him and just offered to shadow him. And that's where I started learning a lot more and changing my thinking. And that's what got me into this.
So you surrounded yourself by the right people.
Yes, I did. And more education and surrounding myself with the right people. Yeah.
And how long have you been doing it?
For 3.5 years. 4 years.
It was a good decision.
It changed my life. I think back to the day when we were sitting down, like he gave me a lot of confidence and influence to make the first investment, which all my family said I was crazy, stay away from it. And 4 years later, the house has doubled in value, it cash flows, and I'm in the best spot I can ever be in.
Was it easy?
No. A lot of anxiety.
But was it worth it?
But well worth it. Yes, you learn, like you said, what did you say? You work to learn. Yeah, winner is a loser who tried one more time. It's like you just keep going and you keep learning from what you do.
So any other takeaways from today?
I think, well, like you said, assets are designed to buy luxuries. Use your assets to buy luxuries. And then I think in terms of, we talk about assets, we talk about building wealth, and a lot of times, it's about generational wealth. So you also have to have, one thing we have to know too is you have to have generational assets to have generational wealth. Mm-hmm. So, you talk in terms of passing assets down to the next generation, like you mentioned, 1031 exchanges, trusts, things of that nature, and then like financial advisors for the next generation, and just the advice, the wisdom that goes along with it, along with the assets to the next generation to manage those, to manage those assets.
It's true. You need, assets to build generational wealth. I never thought about it, but it's 100% spot on. And it's important. And when we think about us specifically, we're in this market center, we are real estate agents, or at least we're involved with real estate. What are our opportunities inside this market center to start building assets? Even if you don't have any money right now, let's say you just got started, you're 18 years old, you just got licensed. not making a lot of commissions, what can you do? You know, like what can be your 3-year plan? So by the time you're 21 years old and you can drink that celebratory champagne, what can you do so that in 3 years you do have assets already? Maybe not that you can retire on, but that you can have.
Exactly.
You know, we have, yes, we can buy real estate. Our commission can go towards the down payment, I believe, or we can ask anyway, but we have commissions. We can save, but what's another way that we can build assets without spending any money? And it's pretty unique to Keller Williams. Our profit share. And that's also generational because you can, you know, your descendants, whoever your heirs are, can inherit it. But if you bring in other agents, you will start collecting money on, you know, the commissions that they make. So I
And
think
not to turn this into an advertisement, but your point is really good, and I'll just share with you guys because it's a person I think you all know. Eric Akbar came to this company. He was one of the last people I sponsored before I was the operating principal, and then, you know, kind of stopped sponsoring people. But he, you know, he was a guy that was selling about $1.6 million in real estate during the recession. He was a go-getter with a positive attitude and a lot of energy, but like large and by far, nobody knew who he was. And he's been the productivity coach here for, you know, getting warm on a half a decade. He's been responsible for the jumpstart of a lot of your guys' careers, and I've heard his name mentioned a number of times here. And I share that just because, you know, that profit share, you know, passive income that comes from that. You know, Eric and I had, I think, we met one time, then we had one additional conversation, and then he came over to the company, and that's been paying off for, I don't know, he's been here, gotta be 8 years now. Mm-hmm. You know, and then everyone else he brings in also contributes to my profit share from that. So thanks, DeLuca.
And to go back to the idea of the accountant and the attorney, you can will your profit share once, but an attorney will tell you that you can will it to a trust. And that trust will pass on to people because the trust will exist forever. And so you only need to will it once. And it can go to your kids and then their kids and then their kids and then their kids. So again, you know, like really understanding money, really understanding how the law and the taxes can benefit you is super, super important in your education and in your path to creating not just wealth for yourself, but the generational wealth that Art was talking about. My biggest takeaway, if anybody else wants to share theirs as well, you know, just unmute yourself. But my biggest takeaway was just that one lesson about the difference between an asset and a liability. It was so simple. Again, success is simple, not easy. But I've always looked at things differently since then. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, well, I apologize for the difficulties in the beginning. I still have never figured out how to split my screen, but I'll have to work on that. Opportunity for growth and learning. All right, guys.
You did great, Sophie. This was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Great job, Sophie. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.